Thank you for joining us today, Emeritus. How are you, sir?
Doing very well, sir. How are you guys doing?
We are good, man. Did I pronounce that correct? I've been practicing all day.
Well, it kind of depends, I guess. It depends on the local, because it's a Latin word. So I guess you could say emeritus. I guess you could say emeritus. I guess you could say emeritus. It really doesn't matter.
I'll be honest. I've used all of them while referring to you to Jamie. So I don't know which one it is. So I've been using all of them.
It's the UK, yeah. But so before we get into like the wrestling stuff, I mean, what is the origins of the character? Because me and Callum were saying we're mesmerised by it. We think it's fantastic.
Well, thank you. Basically, it's sort of it's both a long and a short story, I guess. I was wrestling already as a maskless guy. Then I wrestled a show at a metal festival called Copenhagen in Copenhagen. And my entrance music at the time was, because this was like 2014, 2015, it was Year Zero by Ghost. And Ghost was playing at this concert. And from what I have been told later was that maybe not the lead singer, but one of the band members actually saw the wrestling at the place. And then Bodyslam showed up, needed a masked character afterwards. And I was kind of like, well, I might have an idea. And then I basically just stole from Ghost.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. And they are a great band as well. I mean, but sure, the look is fantastic, man. It really is. We were watching some of your stuff before we rang as well, and just blown away by everything you do. But obviously, Denmark, Bodyslam seems to be making a name for itself at the moment. It's getting a lot of press, a lot of talk. Where did your journey start? Obviously, is Danish wrestling, was it big in Denmark?
Well, basically, and now I'm going to age myself as well. As a kid in Denmark, there wasn't really wrestling on television until I was about 13, 14, because then they started showing, or maybe a little younger, but around that time, they started showing on a small channel. They started showing WCW Thunder in the year 2000. So that was basically my introduction to wrestling. So I had a very low entry point. WCW in the year 2000, Vince Russo era WCW.
Right.
But I still loved it. So basically I started watching a lot of wrestling, started getting a lot of Smart Mark videotapes, all kinds of American indie stuff, Japanese, All Japan wrestling. So it grew pretty quickly. Started talking to random wrestlers, because this was back when AOL, if you remember that.
Of course.
And a lot of wrestlers. Yeah, and a lot of the AOL things, so you could just add them.
Yeah.
Like I remember Rat Daddy, Chris Hero. So yeah, I talked to a bunch of wrestlers. Some of them were nice enough to humor me.
I had Chris Hero on MSN Messenger. Yeah. Yeah, it's so surreal speaking with them.
Yeah, super nice back then as well. It was so weird. I was a fucking kid. But a couple of guys, like Chris Hero, for example, would actually talk to me. And so him and a guy called American Kickboxer, who I had also seen on a lot of IWA Mid-South and Memphis stuff, was actually nice enough to talk to me and explain things to me. And specifically, American Kickboxer was then telling me, because I would show him, like, there was some local Danish wrestling going on at the time, and I would show him some of the stuff. But again, it was a very self-taught place. So I didn't, of course, I was just a kid. So I would show him the stuff, and he'd be like, yeah, maybe don't train there, maybe you wait, and then when you're done with high school, you come over here and we'll train you. So that was basically how it started. And then the week after I finished high school, I just flew to Detroit and lived on his couch for 6 months.
Amazing. So you actually committed to it. You went all the way to Detroit and put the work in with your training. What was it like for you then? You know, you've watched it on TV all this time. You finally get to train, finally get to go into a ring. Was it harder than you imagined it would be?
For sure, in the beginning, I was like straight off the plane and 19 years old and completely starstruck by the smallest hint of wrestling, just because I had only I'd seen all the Smart Mark video stuff, so I knew all these random indie guys. So even though they were Danish guy, he probably doesn't. I was like, I know who all these people are. But yeah, it was weird. But I think that was also why I decided to buy my plane ticket for the return right away. So I was like, okay, I'm stuck here for 6 months. I can't just quit and be like, okay, I'll just go back. This is hard. So I sort of made sure that I was committing to it by making sure I have 6 months here. I'm living on my wrestling trainer's couch. It's like, I'm going to do this. But it was for sure harder than I could have imagined. Just the cardiovascular part, taking bumps and getting used to it. And just the grind of it. It was Monday through Thursday, and then helping the shows Friday, Saturday. So it was like every day, basically.
I've just got to ask as well. I mean, you said you was a huge fan of the American independents when you first started out. For me, I was a huge fan of American Indies too, and I was a huge fan of Chikara. You actually wrestled in Chikara twice.
Yes.
Yeah. So was that a bucket list for you? That must have been awesome.
That was so weird. That was the weirdest thing. Just because, again, all these people, like, I got to wrestle Hello Wicked, and I was like, ooh, as a kid, I couldn't tell him that, but again, it's just that weird feeling of like I was a big fan of all these random independent wrestlers that may have just been Chikara local guys or IWA Mid-South or like all these random HWA, all these like mid-2000s, early 2000s indie guys. And it's like I knew who all of them were, and to get to wrestle for a place like Chikara, that was just crazy to me.
What were the fans like? How did they take to you when you came out of Chikara? Because Chikara's always had such a fun fan base.
Well, it was in the UK, so I think it was sort of a mix of UK fans, but also Chikara fans. So I think they were, because it was I think it was the Fight Club Pro locals mixed with like guys who traveled to see Chikara.
Right.
But it was actually a really nice crowd, which I was not necessarily expecting. But I think they were very welcoming in that there were a lot of guys they probably hadn't seen before, even though there were also these big indie names and like Chikara guys that they specifically came to see, so that they were accepting of a guy like me coming out who they'd never even heard of, and is not the greatest guy in the ring at that point compared to a lot of their like the big indie names and like a guy like Hello Wicked or Mike Quackenbush. So I felt like considering, I think it was a very nice introduction as well to like British crowds, because I hadn't worked in the UK before, and that they were they didn't have that attitude of being like, they were very much willing to welcome any wrestler just because it was like, we're here for you guys and you're here for us. So it's like, we're all here to have a good time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the British fans are a special breed. So it's nice that you enjoyed that. Is that somewhere you'd like to come back and wrestle then? Is the UK?
For sure. I think especially now with all the lockdowns that have been happening, it's like you just want to, like, I'm very much local in the sense that I also want to help build the Danish scene a lot. That's very much like my goal the whole time. That's like, I want to make this scene worth seeking out and worth being a part of. But for sure, I think the lockdown especially has made me like, I also want to go, like, I'd love to go to Mexico. I'd love to go to Japan, but also just more locally, like go more to Germany, because I got a bit of taste of doing some WXW stuff right before the lockdown. Going to the UK, like more local stuff, but still trying to sort of be an ambassador of sorts.
Yeah, obviously, before we talk Bodyslam, you mentioned obviously WXW. What was the experience like? Because obviously, moment of the year, going over there, WXW 16-carat tournament. What was that experience like? That must have been special.
That was insane, especially because it was like literally the weekend where things started closing down when the first lockdown happened. Because I remember when like some of the Italian wrestlers and guys like that were like, they made it home, and the next day or a few hours later, they were like, you can't enter Italy. So it was like right at the edge of everything going bad, and like we weren't sure the week leading up, is this even going to happen? And so it was right at that edge. So it had that weird sense as well as just being insane, because it was such a big production. I think it was the biggest production WXW had done before that as well, with like the stage and the screens and everything, and just being a part of the whole weekend. And the WXW crew and staff and wrestlers are all just super nice and very welcoming. Because again, they made us feel welcome, even though it's their weekend. They're the guys who are putting this on. They're the guys drawing all the crowds, and yet they're still willing to give part of their afternoon to say, "Hey, Bodyslam, come show people what you can do." And I think that's just shows a lot of what wrestling is sort of moving towards as well, with more collaborations and more, if it goes well for you, it goes well for us, and let's just lift it and we all work together. So in that way, I think it was also a good special kind of thing that I wish had been able to be worked out quicker, because now with all the lockdown, it kind of stopped everything dead in the tracks. But I hope something like that is going to keep rolling once things go back to a bit more normal.
I think it's really cool that, like you said, you want to wrestle in all these places, but you are focused on making the Danish wrestling scene into something. And that's the attitude. If more people had that attitude, that the business is going to boom over there. When places start opening up again, if people focus on the Danish wrestling scene, I reckon in a few years' time it's going to be like British wrestling. Like our scene came out of nowhere, and it was literally just because guys started focusing on our scene. And it looks like the same thing's happening for you over there as well. Me and Jamie have already been saying we'd love to come over there and watch some Danish wrestling, just because it'll be so different, different to what we're used to. It's a different experience. So once things do open up, we'll be there. And it's good to know that it's good to know you guys are, you're passionate about it as well. You want to make it into something. So well done to you guys.
Thank you very much. And it's also just, I think we were very much inspired as well by the boom of the UK scene, because again, Bodyslam started in 2015. So the UK scene, that was right around the time when everything was bubbling in the UK. And it was like, this is very impressive considering there's like, these names are made basically by themselves. Like this whole scene is out of nothing almost. And just to know that it is possible if you just work for it and you make it look professional and you focus on that rather than everybody having the goal of, well, it's either WWE or bust. And I think that for a long time where it was like, it's either that or you're a complete failure. Whereas now it's more like, no, we can make our own thing really cool. And that's almost more pleasurable and enjoyable for the fans as well, just feeling like this is our thing rather than just a part of a cog in a machine.
Yeah, because even though you're not far away from the UK, it's only a short flight. It still seemed for a while like anyone from Europe would come to the UK for like the wrestling scene, where it's so much more special if you've got your own and we can share each other's wrestling scenes. We can come to you and you can come to us. I think that's how it's going to be, hopefully. That's
what I hope for, at least. Like that would be awesome, especially because again, we've been like Bodyslam has had all kinds of UK wrestlers as well. Like Mambo, who you've been talking to as well. And like we try to get like super nice guys who are also really good, and Mambo is a good example of that. And it's like I think that's sharing of talent in certain terms of like showing like, hey, Danish wrestling fans, there's also these guys in the UK, and it's like that's really awesome. And then the UK might be like, there's these German guys, these Danish guys, they're like, where it's more of a talent exchange, but not really.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
We spoke to Christian the other night, and we mentioned that Christian said the same thing, really. That obviously he wants to make names with the Danish wrestlers, which is brilliant. But also, like you mentioned, like with Chuck and TK coming in, how important has that been as well to have these guys coming in from like the UK and places?
I think it's meant a lot for just the talent, the Danish talent, getting to wrestle them in that sense. Seeing that what is going on here is correct, I guess you could say, in that you can work with these guys. It's not, you're not doing it wrong. You're doing it correctly. These guys have way more experience, so in that sense, they're way ahead. But like what we are doing is correct. And also just for the fans, of course, getting to see that level of talent, because when what you're bringing in, if you're just like, oh, we're gonna bring in Hacksaw Jim Duggan or something like that, it's like, but that's not really giving that's not a guy who's gonna come in. No disrespect to him, of course, but he's not gonna come in and bust his ass like crazy for a random Danish crowd. Whereas like guys like TK and Mambo are gonna come in and they're like, we're gonna have a killer match. That's just what we're gonna go for. And like they love the crowd here. They're like, holy crap, these crowds are crazy. We're gonna have a killer match. And I think that sort of has both an effect on the wrestlers, that they come in and realize, okay, these fans are just very appreciative of what you're doing. And at the same time, the fans are getting super great matches because these guys are at the top of their game and they're willing to go in and have a great match as well.
That's what Chuck Mambo said last night, actually. He was saying, even though like the fans might be unfamiliar with Speedball Mike Bailey or Chuck Mambo, they still came in Speedball Mike Bailey versus Lucky Kid, Bodyslam, and they came down and they tore the house down. The fans loved it.
Yeah, and the crowd was going like they were doing moonsaults off the rafters, and like it was like insanity. And it's still like they're the kinds of guys we like to bring in as well. We're like, we're gonna have a killer match. It's not that they have to moonsault off the rafters, but just that they want to go out there and be like, we're not just gonna phone it in and be like, yeah, they're gonna go crazy for a headlock, so we'll give them a headlock. It's like they want to have a great match no matter where they go, and that's what the Danish scene needs, much like the UK scene back in the day.
Oh yeah, there was a point where we didn't have good wrestlers. We did back in the day, back in the 80s, early 90s, and there was a period of about 10 years where we didn't really have any names or workers or anything, and we've had to really build it from the ground up.
Was it the UKFF message board or something?
Oh God, that was an awful place.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah. Bad memories for everyone.
Bad memories. It still exists, That's still going.
Really?
Yeah.
And that was not a good place.
I didn't know that was still going.
That was not
But well, obviously, because we spoke to Chuck last night, and Callum will say the same thing. He spoke so highly and so. But the minute we mentioned Bodyslam, his face lit up, and he cannot wait to come back. But I mean, what was it like working with Chuck? Because we had him on last night, and he had us in stitches. He's just such a funny guy.
He seems like the nicest guy in the world.
He's super sweet. He's like that all the time. Because I remember actually the first time I met him was at the Chikara King of Trios, and he was
he mentioned it.
Yeah, and again, there's a lot of guys there. It's like, and it's not because they're trying to be assholes to anybody. It's just that they know other people. So of course, you're going to talk more to the guys you know, and that's natural, and that's how it is. But like Chuck was one of the first guys who came up and was like, "Hey guys, where are you from? Who are you guys?" And it was like, wow, he's very welcoming, and that's just the way he is. He's just a super nice guy, and then also a great in the ring and easy to work with. So yeah. Chuck is just, I hope we're soon able to bring people back just so we can see Chuck again.
Yeah.
Because he's so nice. And as well, where he had in his gear bag, he had the Norm Macdonald, who's a comedian, autobiography, which is not a real autobiography. And I was like, I like that. You're great. You're a great man already.
What made us laugh as well is because me and Callum, when we finished the call, me and Callum both said the same thing. We've got a friend called Tom, and if we closed our eyes, we thought we was on the phone with him. They're so similar, and it was quite surreal. I said to Callum, did we just speak to Tom by mistake? But it was nothing. It was so funny. It really was. And like I said, his face lit up when we mentioned Bodyslam, didn't it, Callum? His face
It did. You could tell it's a place he wants to go back to. We said to him, like, where do you want to go back to when you can? And Bodyslam was one of the places he listed straight away. And he said he likes it because it's similar in talent to, like, the British wrestling scene, but different enough to be really fun as well. And I can see what he means. It's why we want to go over as fans, because it'll be unlike any wrestling we've seen, because it's wrestling that you've grown from the bottom up. You've grown this scene, and it'll be different to what we've got. So yeah, I absolutely can't wait to come over.
And I remember as well when he's been telling all the other British guys whenever they come in, because he's been there a few more times, he'll be like, if you grab them by the back of the head and put their head into the buckle, if you just point to the other one, the crowd's going to go crazy. Yeah. And he's like, what reaction would you get in the UK from that? Nothing. But here,
it's like the Colt Cabana used to do it. He'd grab them and go, "Shall I?" Like, yeah, of course you should. You're in a fight, but the crowd love it. So, well, the British crowd don't anymore because they're a bit more smarky, which isn't always a good thing. So it
go crazy.
Yeah, whereas in Denmark they're probably like, yeah.
Speaking of Denmark, obviously we must talk Bodyslam. I say we've become huge fans. Everything about it, the look, the wrestling, the characters, everything about it. It's what we love. What's it like for you? Obviously representing Bodyslam, and also what's it like working with Christian? I say we had Christian on the other night, and we got a really good vibe with Christian as well. He's a really good guy.
Yeah. And again, it's like I'm sort of in the trenches of it because I'm also teaching at the school, if you want to call it the school. So I'm sort of like very deeply involved in that sense. But that also makes me really proud because I really like seeing other guys get somewhere and just feel like they're getting something out of it. Like Alexander, who's like the champion, or the Easy Lovers tag team guys. I gain almost as much joy out of just seeing them come up with stuff and just show what they've learned and how good they've become, as I do with what I do myself. So like the whole show to me feels very much like I'm just happy all throughout. Just, oh, they're getting to work with these guys now. Oh, they had the best match of the night. Oh, these guys did this. And I'm just super excited because like they're my kids, sort of. Not really, but it feels that way just because they put in all that work. And again, the Danish scene is at the point where it's so easy to quit because there isn't really a scene per se. It's not, you can't just see yourself, oh, I'm going to the WWE in 2 weeks. It's like, it's so far away. So it's like you have to love it and be willing to put in the work to get anywhere. So to see that and see that they feel comfortable, even if we put them against guys like a Mambo or TK or anything like that. And to see that progress from nothing to where we actually have a pretty good roster where we've been forced to, but we can do it in the lockdown period. We can actually run shows with Danish wrestlers. And that's really, I'm very proud of that's possible now.
Do you have any goals, like when the world opens up again? I mean, I know you focused on building up the Danish wrestling scene. That's awesome. But you're a big independent wrestling fan anyway, by the sounds of it. And
Sure.
You've got to wrestle in Chikara already. No one will ever be able to say that again. You know, like Chikara's not around now. So that's awesome. You've been able to take that one off your bucket list. What else do you have on your bucket list? And you sound like you're a fan of IWA Mid-South, the American Indies. Where do you want to hit up in America when you can?
I mean, the U.S. is sort of, the scene has a few good places. Like I'd love like a place like GCW or something like that, where it's like those places where it's like they have a sort of similar to almost a British scene feel, where it's underground, but it's still got some star power. It's still got some really good wrestlers. But I'd still say I'm way more focused on UK places or WXW, or going as far as out on a limb and saying I'd love to wrestle in Mexico just because it's completely different and just trying to learn that style, or going to Japan, even like a place like DDT or something like that. But again, it's very far away right now because of all the lockdowns and everything. And but I feel like I've been also able to think more about that because there hasn't been as many shows here lately. So it's easier to sort of think, what else is there? What is out there when things open up? What will be like my goals? And I would say WXW, after having been there, I'd love to make it closer to their actual roster once things open up. That would be awesome. Or just getting more on the UK scene once that thing starts opening again.
Yeah, that would be awesome as well. Like if you could come over, because it sounds like you've had a taste of the UK scene, but with everything that's going on, you've not been able to make the most of it. You know, like if we didn't have the pandemic going on. So hopefully, once you're going to be back in the UK. We'll be able to come see you wrestle.
Sure.
That would be sick.
That would be.
I've got to ask as well. This is one thing I was going to ask at the start when Jamie was asking about your training. Obviously, you were a WCW fan at first because that's what you watched first. Was there anyone in WCW who kind of inspired the character and persona you are today? Because I'm a huge fan of Sting and Vampiro and stuff. Is there anything of that inside you?
Sure, like exactly. I was going to say exactly those two guys.
Right. Okay.
First stuff I watched, and that was right in the, I think it was Sting and Vampiro feuding at that point, and I thought they were really cool. So I was just like, those two guys are cool. I couldn't even tell you why I thought they were so cool. It was just there was something.
Just got that's something about them, isn't there, which draws you to them.
And it's not even that Vampiro was like a technical marvel or anything, but he was so charismatic in other ways, and he just had that look and that vibe to him. It was like, this guy's really cool.
Yeah, that's cool. I just wanted to know because they're great.
very first show I watched on WCW, and I was so confused because the very first wrestler that came out was Fit Finlay, and he was like, oh, he looks like he's gonna kick somebody's ass, and then the subtitles were wrong, and again I couldn't really hear what's going on. But Mike Tenay was talking about Meng, but the announcer heard me, so in the subtitles I just read that, and Fit Finlay is gonna start beating up me. Like,
really?
What's going on here? Is he gonna fight this guy? And then someone else came out, and I was like, I have no idea what's going on. Yes, that's wrestling. So
yeah, that's wrestling. That's WCW for you.
Actually, that could have happened.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but what a surprise us, yeah. But yeah, two great guys. I said we actually spoke to Vampiro a few months ago, and he's a very interesting guy, a very cool guy.
Very cool.
Yeah, very very cool. He brought on an alien artifact to show us and all sorts. He's
I've heard about super into that, or like ghost hunting and things like that.
Oh yeah, he was in the middle of the interview and said, "Just wait a minute, I've got something to show you. It's an alien artifact." So I'm thinking he's just joking, and he comes back with this like stone or something, and he's like, "This is an alien artifact," and I was like, "Oh, you're serious?"
Well, I guess it's hard to beat that. I don't have any artifacts laying around.
Yeah, how can you top that? Do you have anything?
Yeah, I don't really have anything lying around.
The Macho Man painting's pretty cool.
I guess I have a Macho Man just to set the stage of like something I can't upstage either.
It sounds pretty cool. I like that.
I was just going to point out, I said that is a really cool Macho Man painting. I mean, was Randy Savage another guy that is like an inspiration to you then?
I'd say more later. I'd say when I started out, it was not so cool. But like after I started wrestling, I'd say Macho Man became more of just how crispy is on everything, just how much he gets out of everything. And of course his promos. Everybody loves the Macho Man promo. But year 2000 was not as interesting as once you go back and see Macho Man from the late 80s.
Yeah, totally agree, man. Yeah, I grew up on I'm 36, and I grew up on Hogan and Savage and all that. And Savage was my guy. Everyone grows up a Hulkamania. I grew up a Randy Savage guy, and
proving you right.
Yeah. He was just the man. He really was. But, before we wrap things up as well, obviously Bodyslam Wrestling, Wrestler of the Year. I mean, how important? How much did that mean to you to win that award?
I mean, you can't tell, but I'd be blushing right now if I was. Well, it was kind of like I feel like it was just as much the fact that I got to wrestle guys like Mambo and TK and was involved with the Peter Alexander thing. I wrestled a lot of matches considering how few shows we had, because I was like on 2 or 3 matches on every show. So that may also have played a part that people just saw me more.
Yeah.
But I'd say I'm very happy with it, even if I myself, but maybe that's just my self-deprecating part, is that I think there's other guys who are better, but I'm happy to take. I'll take it.
Take it, man. You obviously deserved it because you won it. So you might just be a humble guy, but if you want to prove it to yourself, there's always 2021. And
that's what I said as well. It's like, I'm gonna do better next year. If we can start running shows, I'll try to do better. That's a better way to do it.
Well, I'm very excited for to see what happens with you and Peter Alexander. Very excited. I'm just that little clip of you grabbing his hand. I got goosebumps. That's wrestling to me. I was like, this is good. This is what I want. Just something so simple as that, and I was hooked. You hooked me just for that. So I'm very excited to see where that goes. We've got Peter on in a couple of weeks. Actually, yeah. I mean, has it been fun working with Peter?
I mean, it's been really exciting because he was sort of like a guy who came in to train, and he'd done some mixed martial arts type stuff before, some amateur fights. So he picked up things really quickly in terms of like the athletic parts. But then the crazy thing with him is that also he's great with like character stuff. He's great with facials. So, and he's like a student of the game in that sense as well, that he just picks things up like super fast. So he's been easy to work with because he keeps just getting better from show to show, because he spends his time really working on like character stuff. Like, what could I do here? What would be a fun thing? What would work with our storyline thing? and that really well that we get the chance to do that instead of just doing random matches, because I think that's going to be the thing, is that we might not just have one match, we might have it spread out over the next year. We might be wrestling a ton, I think.
Please do. Like I say, you had me hooked just from you grabbing his wrist and turning it in that little video I saw. Oh, dude,
and we didn't do the Hogan Ultimate Warrior one, because that would be too.
That hooked me. Just something like that, and I was hooked. I'm like, yes, I'm invested. You've got me now, man. I am hooked and cannot wait to see what.
That's exactly what we want. I'm happy to hear that.
That is it. Before we go as well, before we wrap up, we were talking about the British wrestlers. Another guy that you did wrestle, if I'm correct, was Chris Ridgway.
Yes, I think we did wrestle. Yes, we did. We did wrestle in the tag match once. That's true.
Yeah, I mean, what was it like wrestling with Chris? Because Chris is a very hard-hitting guy, shall we say?
I mean, Chris is, and he's probably even harder hitting now that he's been to Noah, so it might be even crazier now. But I'd say Chris is also just really nice.
He is, yeah.
He's a really nice guy, so it's kind of like that mixture of like, yeah, okay, you can kick me. You can kick me, guy, because you're so nice. And he's like really, he like when I worked with him, he was much greener, and I was as well. But like, I'm sure at this point, after his Noah stint and just working as much as he has in the UK, he's probably way more amazing now than he was then. So, but I was really happy to work with him back then, just because like the UK scene was like, he was clearly one of the up and coming guys at that point.
Yeah.
Has shown that he was, or like that's been proven at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I said before we wrap up, obviously we always like to bring people back. That's so obviously please come back in the future. Because I'm going to want to pick your brains with this Peter Alexander feud, because I am very
Alexander feud breakdown.
Yeah, analysis.
Yeah, I am so invested. But before we do go, please tell everybody where they can find you, social media, any merchandise, Bodyslam.
Yes, you can find me on Twitter, even though I have very few followers because I'm terrible at Twitter. But I think it's Emeritus Pro Wrestling. You can find me there. And on Instagram, Emeritus Wrestler. So it's kind of the same, but not quite the same. I'm not a pro on Instagram, I guess, but I'm better at post clips of me playing guitar on there. That's very exciting. And you can probably also find me on Facebook if you search for Emeritus Pro Wrestler. But I barely post, so don't bother.
We both play guitar, so that's something else to talk about next time you come back on as well.
We'll just talk guitar stuff, like what's our favorite riff.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. We'll rock. I'm a huge Motorhead guy, so we'll talk some rock and roll, some metal. We'll do it. Killed by Death.
A great song.
Yeah. That is my favorite Motorhead song, Killed by Death. It is.
There you go.
There we go, man. There we go. And obviously, Bodyslam Wrestling. I mean, that hoodie you're wearing is incredible.
I don't know if you can buy. I think you can buy it. Otherwise, we'll make sure you can at some point. We can get a T-shirt or something. We'll get it. We'll get it done. But yeah, Bodyslam Pro Wrestling. I don't know what the pay. I think it's Bodyslammers at Instagram.
Online, it's bodyslam.dk.
Yes, that's the website.
Yeah.
And then we got Bodyslammers on Instagram, and I think Bodyslam Pro Wrestling as well on Twitter. I think so. And the same thing on Facebook. You'll find it if you really
find it.
We will, man. But for now, Emeritus, it has been an absolute pleasure, my man. We cannot thank you enough. We are Ringsiders, of course. Find us on YouTube at Ringsiders Wrestling. But for now, Emeritus, it has been an absolute pleasure, man. Thank you so much indeed.
Thank you, guys. It was awesome.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.